Hitting the essence in 3 words. The Dalai Lama's talk on Gaurav Dorje's 3 statements. So the first section that we uh, covered here was pointing out the nature of mind. And so I'll read over, since this is a commentary on Patrul Rinpoche's text, special teaching to the wise and glorious king. I'll read over the root text, okay? So it says, first relax and release your mind, neither scattered nor concentrated, without thoughts, while resting in this even state at ease. Mhm. So, of course, here it also, just to review, a beginner may be able to let the mind rest naturally in itself and try to maintain it. However, it is impossible for them to be free from fixation on the many experiences, such as bliss, clarity, and non conceptuality, that come in the state of calm and stillness. It is not enough for the mind simply to rest without stirring, for even while it does, you will experience a taste of bliss, clarity, and states of non conceptuality, and these can create obstacles to your recognition. So, just a little review. I'll go to part two here then. Part two is titled Decide upon one thing and one thing only. Once you have been directly introduced to such a view, there is a means of maintaining this experience, which is the process of meditation. Now, to give a more detailed explanation of how to take the practice of meditation to heart. In a natural state of rest, all the time and in any situation, your meditation is like a continuous flow of a river. Without cultivating stillness or suppressing the movement of thought, simply maintain the recognition that when stillness occurs, it is the Dharmakaya's own face, and when movement arises, it is the inherent power of wisdom. And then, whether in a state of movement or stillness. So here, it's basically talking about again how if we have a still mind with no thoughts, then we're resting in pure open awareness. If the thoughts come, then this is a display of your mind. So you start to have a continuity there. So it says, once the face of Rigpa itself has been introduced, regardless of what thoughts arise in your mind, there's no need to react to them by encouraging some and blocking others. As it is said, if thoughts arise, they arise within the space of Rigpa, while they also cease within that space. So as long as you can maintain that natural state of Rigpa, none of these thoughts, whatever they may be, can pose any threat. When Rigpa has been directly introduced, whatever thoughts arise within that state, be they positive or negative, there's no need to use some specific and deliberate means to block these thoughts from arising or to avoid indulging in them. Simply hold to the natural state of Rigpa, the face of Rigpa in itself, that has been introduced without ever losing that context. So here again, it's re-emphasizing our point that we need to live our life. We need to go through our patterns, and we may, before we get a strong footing in awareness and the nature of your mind, you still have momentum from past habituations, from past patterns. So it's like you threw a ball up in the air, it's already in the air. So even though you recognize awareness, that doesn't mean this stuff's just going to go away. You have to still let it release its momentum. And then because now you're starting to come into awareness, you won't give it more momentum. Everybody understanding that? Any comments or questions?
Be able to read that again.
What's that?
Could you read that again? Sorry.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me let Luna in. Come on, Luna. You gotta have Luna here if we're gonna talk about Dzogchen. Right, Luna? Right, Luna, baby? Okay. Yeah, so definitely worth repeating. When Rigpa has been directly introduced, whatever thoughts arise within that state. So remember, I don't know why translators like to do this, but they use like 4 different words for awareness. In my opinion, it's much more accessible to simply stick with one word, but I understand there are nuances, but Dharmakaya, Rigpa, and awareness, all the same. That was specified in the previous section. So, when Rigpa has been directly introduced, whatever thoughts arise within that state, be they positive or negative, there's no need to use some specific and deliberate means to block these thoughts from arising or to avoid indulging in them. So there, the Dalai Lama is saying that we don't need to apply antidotes to resolve any kind of thought habituations programming that we have, right? You understand that part?
Yeah. Thank you.
Hmm. That was the first section that you asked me to repeat. So here's the second section. That's basically saying, no need to rely on antidotes because resting in awareness is enough, effortless abiding, right? So it says simply hold to that natural state of Rigpa, the face of Rigpa in itself that has been introduced without ever losing that context. Then, even if thoughts do arise, they can only do so within that space of Rigpa. And where else would they go when they dissolve? So, really talking about the continuity of our realization here. Um, Usually we're in the thoughts, so we're subject to a roller coaster of sorts. Our energy, our mind is really like in a roller coaster cart, following into these thoughts. But if you can manage to relocate yourself into the awareness dimension, then the thoughts sort of coming and going, even if you indulge in them a little bit, it's okay. You sort of now you're witnessing it. You see, big difference. Everyone understanding that distinction between being in the thoughts and being in the nature of your mind? Okay. Yeah, I've called it another, it's a dimension of your mind. And what's remarkable here is that in modern psychology, we know that if you haven't been paying attention to something, you may never see it, even if it's right in front of your face. So this is wonderful for Dzogchen because Dzogchen says your Buddha mind has always been here. You're just not paying attention to it. So now we're relocating our attention. And as we relocate our attention becomes non referential, right? So we're really just pulling our subscription, pulling our involvement into our entanglement into those thoughts. And so by not paying attention to those thoughts so heavily, by paying attention to this awareness that you recognize, you start to relocate yourself. You see? And then just like the modern attention, sort of conclusions, there are other aspects here that Longchenpa, Dalai Lama, many others are pointing us to. So pure presence, ineffability, openness. So we may not have been paying attention to openness or oneness or ineffability, right? And then we hear about purity, primordial purity, and we look for it. If it's there, we pay attention to it. And then we don't need to pay attention anymore because that's just like when we see the gorilla in the selective attention experiment, we don't even need to try to see it. It's unavoidable at that point. It's like if you never knew the person in a crowd and then somebody pointed that's George. He loves red sweaters. And then next time you look into the crowd, well, it's unavoidable. There's George with the red sweater. So just like that, once you see it, there's really no turning back, right? You just have to familiarize a little bit and pay attention to it a little bit to really acknowledge it. And by the way, learning is like that too. If you're interested in really learning something, get your mind to fully pay attention to it. That's why your passions are great if you can combine your career and your passions because you're fully immersed paying attention when it comes down to your passions. Otherwise, when you're just doing mundane work, you may not be so involved. You may be distracted, and you know all kinds of other stuff. So, any other comments? Good.
Maybe it's kind of a superfluous question, but do we ever find out why abiding in Rigpa is enough to release phenomena?
Yeah, because you're no longer able to fuel the cycles. So you're relocating yourself. It's almost as if you were in a cup of coffee, and as long as you keep spinning it, the water will always be black, right? Will always be the color of coffee. Then when you relocate yourself into wetness itself, just wetness, and so it doesn't matter you're no longer spinning. Now you're in the whole cup, basically. We could also say you relocate yourself to water itself, the
Mm,
nature of water. So as you do that, you're no longer spinning. Now you're the water itself, but the spinning has to exhaust itself. It has to go out, you see?
yeah,
And so as you remain, maybe you're the glass now, actually, you know? And so now you're the glass, immovable, untouchable. And so the spinning ceases, the coffee, well, in Sutrayana, it goes down. It's you have some clarity, but it's still there. In Atioka, it's gone. It dissolves, right? It turns into clear water, basically. That's the idea. Our ignorance has always been clear water. We just have a perception that sort of refracts it. But here, really, the idea is the glass can represent awareness, Rigpa. The more you come into it, familiarize, there's no more spinning, no more momentum, and you have to wait for your momentum to stop that you've already initiated. Okay. And as that momentum ceases, then all of a sudden clear water is displaying itself, right?
yeah, that makes sense.
That's how it's possible. And this is verified through, modern studies in psychology. So pretty cool that our patterning, our schemas, as they're called in psychology, or our programming, as we've been saying, we can test how it can exhaust itself. And really, self liberation is the key because those thoughts that used to trigger you into a cycle, your initial triggers aren't happening anymore. You're not grasping at them, they're coming and going. And so you never go into the cycle. You don't even want to anymore. You know, you may even have the slight thought, uh, you may have the urge, to drink or to indulge in whatever. and then it just comes and goes, so you never indulge, right? And
Mhm.
if you do, you do. That's also within, sometimes the whole pattern has to be within your awareness for a little bit. Like I said, it's got momentum. But I can assure you, speaking from my own experience, that momentum starts to exhaust in a relatively short time.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. Great question. Many books written about that question. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. I'll continue reading. And please don't mind if I'm a little tired, okay, to the YouTube and everybody. I'm doing my best to. I've been working, doing some labor jobs, so it's been, yeah, lots of physical work, but I love the Dharma, and if you just allow me to be a little tired, we still have fun, okay? So, Kitty, Kitty wants to knock the phone over. There are cats are amazing at knocking stuff over by accident. All right, Kitty, she loves Dharma. She just always right on my lap whenever we're in the sessions. All right. From the energy of mind's thinking come negative emotions like anger and attachment that represent the truth of the origin of suffering. I want to just pause there. It says from this is gives you vital information here. It says from the thinking comes emotions. So, as a practitioner, as a mind scientist, as a psychologist, you are able to see how your thoughts directly lead you into an emotion. Anger needs a thought to start, to maintain itself, to justify itself. Same with our desires, our pride, our jealousy. It's all like that. hmm They need the thoughts. That's why self liberation is so potent. If they don't have the thoughts, these cycles cannot be. Your anger that you've dealt with for so long, right, actually stops arising because the very thoughts that they anchored on have flown away like a bird in the sky. hmm It's very beautiful, Kyle. Yeah, especially for those of us who have struggled with our own ignorance and desires and anger. Yeah, it's such wonderful news. So I'll just start over with that, with the whole thing. From the energy of mind's thinking come negative emotions like anger and attachment that represent the truth of the origin of suffering, as well as feelings like happiness and sorrow, which constitute the truth of suffering itself. So thoughts, this is Four Noble Truths here, right? Thoughts are the origin of suffering, and then it's saying the happiness and sorrow from those are suffering itself. So pretty cool sort of Dzogchen context for the four truths. Truths. So yeah, whatever experiences arise, if you can realize that true nature of these thoughts and emotions, oh, excuse me, it probably if you can realize that the true nature of these thoughts and emotions is the very nature of reality, they will be just the flow of Dharmakaya. And so, here's the root text it says, of anger or attachment, happiness or sorrow. So, yeah, just to show you again, he's basically commenting. I don't know if you can see the bold there, but that's the root text. And he's commenting on the root text. So it sounds a little weird when I'm reading it, but that's what's happening. But that is not all. Generally speaking, even though you may have recognized the view, if you do not sustain it in meditation and you slip into the ordinary proliferation of delusion, the same old patterns of thought will bind you to samsara, and you end up no different from an ordinary person. These are some hard hitting little lines here. Um, I make the distinction between feelings, which are a consequence of thought patterns, and sensations, the underlying affective energy. Mm, okay. So here really good again because it says we're just talking about patterns and programming, so really reinforcing what we were just saying. It says even though you may have recognized awareness, if you don't sustain it, you slip into the ordinary proliferation of delusion and the same old patterns of thought that bind you. Very pithy. As a result, the Dharma and you become divorced, and you end up no different from an ordinary person. That is why you must never be apart from the supreme state of naturally resting and non meditation, and why all the time in any situation. That's the root text there. It says all the time in any situation. That's why, preferably, when we start the sessions here, let it be very natural. That's why I took away the bell too, because we want to start to blend meditation and non meditation. If you're sitting here very upright, and you have a contrived posture and you're trying to control your meditation and you're judging it like it's on Teen Idol or something, you know? Yeah, that's not really Dzogchen. But if you could just sit here, eyes open, you know, be with whatever's here. And then if we start reading or if we start talking, there's no big change. This is when you're really getting there. You know? So whatever the mind, excuse me. So whether the mind is still, active, or whatever, it is not a question of overcoming each individual negative emotion and thought with its own separate remedy. Instead, the sole remedy for whatever thought or emotion may occur, the one remedy for all, is the recognition of that view which was introduced previously, and that alone. So, recognize that Dharmakaya you recognized before. I mean, this is why I keep people purely in Dzogchen, and it seems to be working for people. Uh, it says here, I mean, it's not just the Dalai Lama, it's not just Patrul Rinpoche, it's many masters that really say this is the one remedy, you know, for whatever thoughts and emotions. This is the one remedy for all of that. So, at any time and whatever the situation, regardless of the variety of thoughts that arise, you do not need to rely on individual antidotes for each individual thought and emotion. Rather, you simply recognize the Dharmakaya wisdom which was directly introduced before. This brings to mind one of the songs of Jetsun Milarepa, in which he sings of how the clouds arise within the space of the sky and dissolve back into its expanse again. There are other examples: the ice that melts to become water again, or the water that turns turbid the more it is stirred, but becomes clear once left alone. So you're leaving everything alone, it's becoming clear on its own. If you start to look, nature is very much like that too. Just so, Rigpa is the true nature of all the thoughts that stir within the mind. Rest in Rigpa, and within that state, thoughts will simply vanish. Here, there is an important distinction to be made. In the mainstream tradition of Madhyamaka philosophy, What is refuted is the mind's grasping at things as though they had true existence. This is the ignorance that is the first of the 12 links of interdependence, the initial ignorance, which causes us to grasp at things as true. Here, however, the focus is on that which has never been subject to that grasping, which makes this quite a different approach. So, whatever thought or emotion arises, in itself it is no other than the wisdom of Dharmakaya, and the true nature of these thoughts and emotions is the actual clear light of the basis of Dharmakaya. When you recognize this, that is what is known as the mother clear light present as the basis. To recognize your own nature in that view of the clear light of self-knowing Rigpa introduced earlier by the Master is what is known as the path clear light of practice. To remain in the state where these two, the clear light of the basis and path, are inseparable is known as the meeting of mother and child clear light. So, the root text says, and mother and child clear light, already acquainted, will reunite. It's one of my favorite lines, to be honest, of that whole Pacho Rinpoche text. Um, Mother and child clear light, already acquainted, will reunite. It's beautiful because your mind is like a baby clear light. And once you start to familiarize with awareness, it's like you're meeting the mother clear light. But you've always, just like a baby that's in a womb has always been part of the mother, right? It's been inside the mama's tummy. So it's like the baby there's no baby that knows it's in the mother. There's no chicken that knows it's in the egg and the mother's sitting on it keeping it warm. The only way you could possibly know that is maybe subtle intuitions. You don't even have when you're a baby in the womb, you don't even have the conceptual framework to understand that you're in a mother, okay? But you're inseparable. Even your mind is inseparable. You're getting your food, everything from your mother. Just like that, we don't have the conceptual framework to understand that we're in the womb right now, being fed, being taken care of. Yeah, we can either go against that or not, you know, but we're already in it. I love this line. Already acquainted, and you reunite. It's a sort of paradox. Geez, so much good stuff. I'm not sure we'll make it to section 3 here. Maybe. Because I really want to go through this just like we did with the Dzogchen text and make it all accessible. And section 2 is actually quite longer, so we'll just go a little bit more with this. Fundamentally, no matter who we are, whether we meditate or not, the self-arising wisdom or Rigpa is already primordially present, and we have never strayed from it. Then there is Rigpa as it is directly introduced to us by the Master on the basis of our personal practice. The nature of Rigpa in both cases is identical. It is uncontrived Rigpa, but in the one case it is simply so without having been directly introduced, while in the other case we are recognizing our true nature for what it is. So one can talk about Rigpa in two ways, but actually there are not two things, one reuniting and the other being reunited. The direct introduction to what is naturally present as the basis of being is metaphorically called reuniting mother and child. In other traditions, this expression, reuniting, or sometimes merging mother and child clear light, is connected to the dawning of the basis clear light at death, experienced even by ordinary people when they die. Specifically, the expression describes the ability of a practitioner, through the power of yoga, to transform this experience as it arises into the essence of the path. And this is what is meant by reuniting mother and child clear light, the mother clear light being that which arises for even ordinary people at death, and which is transformed into the path. So they're talking about the bardo here, and this is also backing up that your enlightened mind should be familiar to you. All these things, pure presence, ineffability, openness, all of it. It's familiar to your natural relaxation, your natural kindness. You know it, and you know your Buddha mind because we sort of, I don't know how much some of you have confirmed rebirth, others maybe still are testing, but rebirth happens within the Buddha mind. You basically like a boomerang, right? You're boomeranging yourself sort of out of enlightenment into this life based on desires and whatnot, and then that's all fleeting, so impermanent. So you just come on back, and more. It's like this body is just like throwing a ball up in the air. It has momentum. Boom. Here we have the midlife crisis. Quarter life crisis here. 3/4 crisis here. Okay. So really, your body can be seen like a leaf on a tree in that way. So I'll continue reading. Also, the mother clear light can be a reference to the state of emptiness, with the child clear light as the mind, not really considered as Rigpa in this particular tradition, that maintains a continuous awareness of that emptiness. So, in these traditions, reuniting mother and child refers to the way in which the mind, the child, experiences emptiness, the mother. In this way, always remind yourself of the view, which is the clear light recognized in you as your true nature, and rest in that state. Apart from that, the crucial point is neither to suppress nor indulge, neither accept nor reject, in any way the thoughts or emotions which are the energy of Rigpa. The root text says, rest in the aspect of awareness beyond all description. So I think there are some translation nuances that I would like to address. Just in my opinion, it says neither suppress nor indulge, neither accept nor reject any of these thoughts and emotions because they're just the energy of Rigpa, right? But it's not up to you whether you're suppressing or indulging. You're going to suppress, you're going to indulge. And just in the previous part of this text, we see that indulgence is also just the display of Rigpa, and it's okay if you catch yourself indulging. I just explained that. Sometimes the thoughts come and go, they don't send you into a cycle. Other times you indulge, other times you get taken away, you're on the roller coaster ride. So, what it's saying here is that, you know, continue to familiarize with that dimension, the nature of your mind, because whether you're indulging or not, right? So, Pacho Rinpoche describes how to maintain the recognition of Rigpa on the basis of your experience of the direct introduction to the face of Rigpa itself. This is what is meant by rest in the aspect of awareness beyond all description. I'm not my amateur self isn't totally cool with rest in the aspect of awareness, which is awareness. Doesn't have any aspects in that sense, but as long as you understand. In other texts, those of the highest yoga tantra tradition, the term clear light is used to refer to a subtle state of mind that is co-emergent with being itself. This corresponds to what in the Dzogchen tradition is referred to as the basis Rigpa or ground Rigpa, for a distinction is made between the basis and the manifestation of the basis. When you are directly introduced to Rigpa through the six consciousnesses, this is termed Rigpa as energy, or effulgent Rigpa. On the basis of being introduced to Rigpa as energy, you meet the basis Rigpa face to face, or the ground Rigpa. When you maintain that state for a long time, as a beginner, you will have experiences of bliss, clarity, or non-conceptuality, which will mask the face of your true nature. So if you free it from this shell of attachment to experience and lay bare the actual face of Rigpa, then wisdom will shine out from within. There's a saying, the more it is disrupted, the better the meditation of a yogin. The further it has to drop, the greater the force of the waterfall. So the more your meditation is disrupted, uh, yeah, the better your meditation. I hope you're starting to really understand Dzogchen and Vajrayana. That's why I don't understand so much when people are so hard on each other in Vajrayana and Dzogchen. Like they say, "Oh, you said a cuss word," or "Oh, you're mad," and "Oh, look at you getting drunk," or something. That's okay. you know, we're not at Christian camp here anymore. Okay, you're allowed to. There's a level of maturity that you know you don't give yourself a pass to go do silly stuff, but there might be some stuff that you're already doing and you can't really get out of it. So, uh, yeah, this isn't about saying, "Oh, you slipped up, you got angry, so you're not a good practitioner." No, that is the exact thing that we need. We need that moment of anger to be free of it. So all those sort of Puritans out there that they want you to just because you practice Dharma, they want you to act a certain way. They want you to put on a certain facade. Well, there's a misunderstanding there. So, stillness and bliss, clarity and thinking disrupt them again and again. And it can be the case that you get into this very blissful, clear state, but you know, you want that to be disrupted. There'll be a day where your body is dying and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. So, don't get attached to the body being in some pleasant state. It's not what it's about. Pleasant and unpleasant, those fall away, and it won't matter what the body is experiencing because it's all pure mind at that point. The stronger you come into your pure mind, your enlightened mind, sickness will not overwhelm you. You won't be in a roller coaster of sickness. Now you're watching it. You won't be in the spinning inside the glass, which is sickness or dying. Now you're the glass itself, and sickness and dying can happen within the glass just fine. Okay? And you may even find out that birth and death aren't that bad. They're not that serious. So, meditative experiences of stillness, bliss, or clarity will obscure the Rigpa when they arise, and so they must be disrupted. How to disrupt them, you may ask? Whenever experiences of stillness, bliss, or clarity arise and intensify, or feelings of joy, glee, or delight, you must pulverize your shell of attachment to experience, shattering it as if by a bolt of lightning with the forceful sound of "Phat!" which is the combination of Fa, the syllable of skillful means that concentrates and gathers, and T, the syllable of prajna, which cuts through. So, suddenly striking with the syllable of skillful means and wisdom. So this is great. We have an explanation here, right? Of when they say suddenly striking with the syllable of skillful means and wisdom, they mean fet. Fet! Because it breaks the thoughts, cuts, disrupts, right? So fa is the skillful means. T, the rest of that is the wisdom, prajna. So fet. Okay? And don't worry, we've already we have some other methods for this. We don't use fet that often in the group. So you might wonder, well, how do I disrupt my attachment to bliss and clarity if I don't use fet? If I'm not screaming fet. Well, we have these meditations that we do in here where we start to see what grasping feels like. I've done many little meditations with you that showed you what it's like when your mind grabs a thought, what it feels like, what it looks like, the texture, everything. So you don't need FET if you know what attachment looks like and feels like. And so one of the experiments that you could do is as we sit here with our eyes open, you can pick an object. I'll pick a photo of my cat. And then now just bring your awareness around a foot in front of you and don't pick any object. You still have a slight attachment to the object you picked before, didn't you? That's subtle grasping. That's what it looks like. Whether you're grasping emotions, anything, it's going to feel the same exact way. Any questions on that? What grasping feels like? Do that experiment if you're unsure. Ask questions. Yeah, great, Dennis. Yeah, it's we need to slowly understand our minds, and these are little ways that we can test that. Okay, so use FET if you like it, but remember that as long as you sit with certain groups and certain teachers, that they may have other approaches. I do too, Kyle. At such times, says Patrol Rinpoche, you must dispel thoughts with a forceful explanation of the syllable fet! Exclamation. So exclamate fet. Such a big part of this text. We have a Kusala Chud that I do. There's so many feds in there that you must be enlightened by the end of it, or at least resting in your enlightened mind for a little while. Yeah, but it's PHAT. Maybe E is also used. I don't know. But I usually see it with an A. So, so in the phrase, the indescribable, all-penetrating Rigpa, the word Zangtao, all-penetrating, carries the sense of a lack of obscuration. Although the manifest objects of Rigpa continue to arise unimpeded, outwardly your mind does not fixate on these objects, and inwardly you simply rest in the state of Rigpa itself. So whatever you are, so whether you are in meditation or in post-meditation, that is to say, in the formal sessions or in the periods in between them, there's no real difference between the two. All right, so that seems to be a theme right now. Starting to mingle meditation and non-meditation. We've seen that pop up quite a few times naturally. So maybe keep that in mind. It may help you. And we just talked about grasp fixating on objects, what that looks like, what that actually feels like. So wonderful. I'll stop there on page 75 because this section has a couple more pages to it, okay? But thank you so much for those of you who are listening and took part in the Dharma talk. Really wonderful text, very pithy. You guys could probably tell that those are my favorite. Longchenpa's Treasuries. I knew this text had it, but it had so much introduction stuff. And I know I shouldn't say this, but all that preliminary stuff, I just want to skip it and get to really the root of it all. I feel like us, in these modern times, we're ready for that, and we're not so accustomed to the other stuff, the more cultural stuff and traditional things. So I like to keep it very bare bones in that regard. Let me see here. So Kyle asking, isn't that the whole thing right there? Skip directly to open awareness. Oh, yeah. Well, it's been part of the way I like to present it and deal with it. Um, I feel like I know my people. I grew up, in the Western kind of world, in this modern world, and I feel like I know, the people well enough, and I've seen people get caught up in cultural stuff and also anecdotal things and cause and effect paths and mixing them with resultant paths. So this ends up problematic. Dzogchen and probably Zen too, actually, at least silent illumination and some of those that I'm familiar with. Uh, these you're dealing with results. You're dealing with emptiness itself, how to access that, and your enlightened mind. You're not dealing with any applying any fixes because the idea is we don't need to fix what isn't broken. And if you're trying to fix what isn't broken, you're breaking it. Okay, any final thoughts then before we go today? Well, thank you too so much. It's always a pleasure hanging out. And apparently, little Nitty the kitty likes to hang out too. She just every time, as soon as we start reading, she's here. And I'll be sitting here before the session. You know, I'll watch a YouTube video or something, but as soon as the session starts, there she is. Hi, she's so sweet. Okay, so ready to close? No final thoughts, right? Everybody good? I hope you're accessing. It seems like I'm getting the feeling like you are. So truly wonderful. Yeah. We had a big group earlier and big group now. The whole group really accessing. So this is great. Yeah. Thank you so much for your practice. It means the world to me. All right. Well, we'll do. Now you know what the mother means, Tara. So let's do White Tara mantra for the pacification of these wars, the immediate stop to the wars, and for wisdom and compassion to swiftly and powerfully dawn on the world leaders and those engaged in warfare, and comfort and safety arrive to those victims, those innocent ones. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Unye Jana Puten Kuru So Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Unye Dana Uten Kuru So Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Mama Unye Jana Puten Kuru So. So through the gathering together of all these yogins today and the silent sit that we did, including the reading of this Dharma text, Dharma talk, which is considered right speech, whatever merit, whatever benefit or realization there beings in this very presence, and we dedicate it to them. Gewa Magin Dodo Unlano. Gewa Magin Dodo Unlano. Gewa Magin Dodo Kunlano. Deep bow to you, my friends. Deep bow. Please have a beautiful day, okay? And thank you so much for hanging out with me.